it's Gina DePrima, and you're listening to Divorce with Heart. We merge heart wisdom and legal expertise to guide you along your divorce and co-parenting journey. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining me today. It's another beautiful Monday. I'm hoping we have some less little technical glitches here, although I already started with some issues. So please bear with me. I so appreciate that. And I thank you for joining me. Today is episode 10. And I have a super special guest. Her name is Cassandra Joan Butler. And that may sound familiar to you because I mentioned her weeks past. In one of the earlier episodes, Cassandra had commented on our Facebook group, the Divorce with Heart Facebook group, and she was sharing with us how she was able to go through the divorce process and come out as friends. So, and I don't think it happened overnight. It took some time, but she agreed to share her wonderful story with us. So I'm just so glad to have her here with us today. And a few things first. Although I'm wondering if you're hearing me because I'm feeling like perhaps we lost the connection. Did we lose the connection? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. It was weird on my end. At any rate, all right. So before we jump in and bring Cassandra on, I just have another request of you. I'm hoping you can help me out. My whole purpose in being here with you on Mondays and the whole purpose of the Divorce with Heart Facebook group is really to help you, to help lead you and guide you through a time in your life that I know is such a difficult time, and to hopefully bring you some healing and some insight. So let me know if I'm doing my job. Let me know if what I'm saying is reaching you, if it helps you, if it makes a difference, if maybe there's something else that you'd like for me to explore. I am all ears. So reach out to me. Let me know through Facebook on the Facebook page, or leave me a rating in iTunes, or go to the Inflow Radio page. That would be great too. So let's get started with Cassandra. Cassandra, are you there?
I sure am. Hi, Gina.
Oh, good. Hello. Good. Thank you for joining us. I so appreciate it.
My great pleasure. My great pleasure. And that's exactly what had happened. I saw your Facebook page and I thought, wow, someone's really taking divorce as a process and not as a conflictual war. And so I really admire so much what you're doing, Gina.
Oh, thank you. Yep, that's the goal, right? That's the goal. That's what I'm hoping for, is to help people, understand that there's certainly a different way of doing it. And divorce, as I like to think of it, it can be a doorway, right? It can really be a doorway to a better future, to a brighter future. And you can even come out with a stronger, happier, healthier family, right?
Absolutely. That actually happened in my case. As many people know, I do the, I'm known throughout Western New York basically for my astrology, right? And I love it. I've been doing it for 30 years. And so when I got married to my ex, which was about 24 years ago, we had a great, again, bear with me, using the astrological lingo, a great chart together. I mean, and I'm going to just put that in plain English. People, when they get married, they have such great expectation and they love each other and so forth. And of course, being human. We both went through the devastation of the divorce. We realized pretty early on that this was not going to be our particular lifestyle of being married. And over time, I just heard from him a couple minutes ago. Hey, the guy that you recommended to do some handy work around the house, he worked out. Do you have another name for me? We're buds, okay? So,
oh, no kidding, yeah.
I can't wait to share this radio segment with him, because over the years we have co-parented very well, and I don't know how much you want me to talk about the past, but I'll be happy to share. Anything you'd like me to do.
I think it's important. I think it's important to share the past, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So our listeners who might not be in that place where they're feeling like, oh, there is light at the end of the tunnel, or it can be a brighter place, that they know that it is possible,
Right.
So,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go ahead. Whatever you're willing to share.
Sure. Absolutely. We dated for a while. It wasn't like, hi, how are you? Let's get married. We dated for a while, and there were some, issues of, I would call it, personality, coping things that came up in the courtship. However, it turned out that when we got married, it was kind of a stressful time. My mom, she became ill with cancer, and she quickly passed. And there was a lot of moving around for careers. We weren't in the Western New York area at that time. And essentially, I remember when we had gotten married, it was like the sense of, okay, we really do like each other. Let's just kind of do the marriage thing and build a life together. Having said that, in my particular case, with my particular story, neither one of us have remarried. You might say that we are two very extraordinarily independent people who just never took to the idea of marriage. We were married for about 5 years, long enough to produce 2 beautiful children, and separated when the kids were essentially babies. So at the time, at the time, it was pretty devastating, because it was like, okay, great. I've got, a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old here, and I'm single mommy. And
terrifying, right?
Terrifying. And then, I went through my own movements, because my mother had just passed. My father had remarried, and I felt pretty much like this oasis. Thank goodness for great friends and my wonderful sisters, because I kind of pulled it all together, because we were both angry with each other. Okay. And I think it was more anger at the fact that the marriage collapsed. And in my particular case, I think that stress of having children, babies, was a little bit too much for him. I'm kind of like a mother bear type of personality. Moving forward, it was like, okay. And I remember my attorney at the time, she would say to me, because I'm a very kind of go with the flow, conciliatory type of person. She said, remember, you got to think about the children. And at the time, and I'm not sure what the law is like now, because this was 24 years ago, Gina. But she said, basically, when we look at the support, because I wasn't quite able to do my astrology at that time, because I had full-time care of the kids. So, there's always these horror stories that the gentleman is going to be accountable for holding all the expenses. And it wasn't quite like that. I'm a professional. I was working in between everything. And some of the anger that would come up was, found out after the fact, after we were separated, oh my gosh, he's got a new girlfriend, and then another new girlfriend. And so I was processing all that stuff. And as a single mom of 2 babies, you can't go out, at least I didn't, looking for another boyfriend. So there was a lot of pain and shame and grief and all that good stuff. And I do remember, our daughter was at I think she was really little, like, I don't know, 5, 6, at a dance recital. And, to both of our credits, he would come to the recital as I would. And we took each other aside, and he looked at me square in the eye and said, look, I am really sorry we went through this. And we both cried, and we hugged, and I said, I'm getting emotional even thinking about it. And at that point, we said to each other, we love these kids so much. Let's make our love for them stronger than our disappointment, our anger towards each other. And that was a turning point. That was a turning point. And obviously, the other extreme is that when you are going through a divorce, you don't want to fall back into the hoping and wishing. I think both of us were really clear when we separated, this was it. I think it's also anguishing with people who are holding on to the hopes of reconciliation. And by the way, we went through counseling. We went through all these other avenues prior to the actual separation. And but for those first couple of years, it was like, okay, you want the kids? Here they are. And then he'd be late, or I'd be late. We'd be passive aggressive with each other.
Yes. Oh. And did you realize, this is sort of a rhetorical, I guess, but did you realize at the time what you just said, that it was kind of like a passive aggressive sort of position that you were in? Did you realize that?
No, I didn't. I mean, maybe going back to that moment, and this is really interesting. This is very therapeutic, Gina, talking about this
good.
stuff, right?
That's what we're all about.
We're talking a quarter a century ago. No, I think at the time I was just angry. So if he had to wait an extra 10 minutes for me to drop the children off, so what?
Yeah.
But in all fairness, we did even early on make an agreement never to talk about the spouse in front of the kids. So thanks for friends, because I was, giving them an earful, but never my children, because someone also pointed out, excuse me, that daughter, that son of yours, they're related to your ex. And I think, so we avoided those pitfalls with, a lot of consciousness with regards to that.
Even in the very early stages, you're saying you were able to at least make that separation. Oh, that's good. That's good.
Correct. And at the time, my ex was also, because he left the family house, so he was living with his mom at the time, whom I very much like, and I honor her. And that was also the discomfort of how do you act with the ex-in-laws, right?
Yeah.
But she was always a sweetheart, as was my ex's dad. So when we would do the co-parenting thing, every other weekend, that was the formula. He would have the children. It was mostly his mom at the time who was taking care of the kids. And again, we're talking a long time ago when they were babies. And so it was a little bit of a stumbling part in the dark. And, I had to deal with my resentment too, I think, because here, and I think I wasn't even 40. I had gotten married around age 36. So maybe I was 41. He's off running and having a life and going out, and I'm pretty much with the babies. But so at the time, I think I was processing some of that as well. How come he gets a little bit more freedom than I? But yeah. However.
And then you just mentioned too that then when it was his time to be with the kids, at least in the earlier stages, right? They were often with grandma, his mom. I can't tell you how often that comes up in my practice. And
really,
it just really gets under people's skin, And so, and since you experienced that, and it was okay on some level, I wonder what you might have for advice to somebody else who's going through that.
Sure. I would say, what? One extra bit of hands, especially with young children, is better. I mean, actually, even though there was a part of me that said to myself, how come, he gets help? I don't. Because at that point, both my parents, my mother was passed, my father was with his new wife. So I didn't have that family support. And that was my own issue, Gina. But really, realistically, if there's a woman out there who has that similar situation, and she has a lovely, like I have, a lovely mother-in-law, celebrate that, because having kids, babies, is a handful for anybody.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, I agree. I agree with you 100%. And that's usually the advice that I try to give is, you can never have too much love to go around. And, it's okay. These kids they're fortunate, not unfortunate, that they do have a grandmother, that they have a grandmother that loves them and that is there to help and support them. And, and dad, he'll come around, right? And in your case, he certainly did.
He certainly did. And it was really interesting because eventually, I'll share with this, eventually he actually ended up purchasing a home, a block away from me. And it was really funny. Yeah. I mean, it was a nice neighborhood and so forth. And again, this is a long time ago. And I thought to myself, maybe it's a little bit too close. And I thought, wait a minute, this is awesome because the kids would walk over his house. And I mean, since that first 3 years, probably post-divorce, when we had that big moment, we have consciously been really good, I think, co-parents. It was like we'd be, what's the word, flexible with our time with the kids. Again, I don't know what the formula is for many divorcing people these days. We felt it was best to have the kids have an anchor at my house, but they would see their dad on, I think it was Thursday nights, every other weekend, and any other time that they wanted to go over. As they became older, there was a lot of, movie night with dad, or watching games with dad, or taking little trips to amusement parks with him. So I'm not saying it was all fairy tale wonderful, but it's life. It's real. It's not fairy tale and lovely with anybody, but we truly, truly respect each other. And I think we respected the process of getting over the hurt and the shame. And I'm very, very pleased with this relationship I have with him. Father's Day is coming up this weekend. So traditionally, even in the early stages of our divorce, we would make a special moment on Mother's Day and Father's Day. And we would now we take each other out for a meal with the kids. And it's all very comfortable. Back then may have been just a card. And because I honor him as a father. And we are not good as married partners. Yeah.
That's so important. Just that separation that you're highlighting right there. You can look at your partner and acknowledge and understand that, okay, look, we're not good as partners, as you just said it. But that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not good as a parent, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And so it's certainly been a journey. Over the years, there have been milestones with the children, and of course, he's always invited on birthdays. And I hope listeners can appreciate this too. I don't just invite him; I'll invite his girlfriend of the day. Of the day. He's been with someone. I mean, we've had some family parties at the graduation. Well, with all due respect, I think this latest girlfriend the past couple of years might be it for him. I don't know, but which is awesome, and she's very pleasant and lovely person. And I remember at one of the graduation parties I had with the kids, it was a big party at the house, and she came and people were like, "Does that make you feel strange that he had?" I said, no. I mean, my ex is like a very beloved but distant relative.
Right. Yes.
So I want him to be happy. Yeah.
That's good. So you've really found that mutual ground of respect, it sounds like. And so let me just back up a minute. So it was about 3 years or so post-divorce, right? That was particularly difficult. Okay.
Yes.
And then you said it was that dance recital, and it was him that approached you, which I just find, I don't know what the right word is. Fascinating is not the right word, but intriguing, maybe. I don't know.
Yes.
Because, usually in my limited experience anyways, it just seems like more often than not, it's the mother that would be the first to say something or break that barrier down, So I don't know. That's interesting that it was him. What do you think was going on?
I think what was going on between you and me and anyone who's listening, his behavior was worse than mine. You owed me an apology. No, I'm just talking about how just that initial breakup was pretty traumatic, and so I think actually giving myself a pat on the back. Okay. I think I had written him a letter because we were so angry. We were not talking during the actual process of the divorce, and this is why I really respect you, Gina, because I'm sure people have had this experience. I think the attorneys were more angry at each other than we were angry with each other.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
That happens occasionally.
Although I loved my attorney, but there was a little dance that was going on at that point. So I think that what was happening, I had written him a letter saying something to that effect, what I just shared with you. We have to become better friends eventually. And I think he kind of shrugged and said, sure. But it didn't have that finalized kind of in-your-face moment until the recital. And then things did shift, and it really was, a little bit more conciliatory going forward and deferential to each other, just really wanting to make sure that the other felt okay. Like most people in the world, we had some moments with both of our children. The teenage years or the classic teenage years, great kids, bad teenage years. And so we came to, and they're fabulous now, by the way. But okay. I remember early on in raising my kids, I thought to myself, we're just going to bypass the teenage years. My kids are pretty cool. They're not going to have any problems whatsoever. Wrong. I think we all hope for that. Challenges. Right. And it was not, I don't think, because of the divorce per se. We all read those studies. Divorced kids have lower this, lower that. But we were both intelligent enough to know that we have to maybe work a little harder, again, for the sake of the kids.
Right. And that's really what it's all about. I think I addressed that in one of my earlier episodes. The impact on kids and all of those statistics that we hear, kind of the horror story. And that's really what Divorce with Heart is all about. It doesn't have to be that way. And you're a perfect example of that, because if you can do exactly what you said, which is, put more value and emphasis, more of your attention on loving your children first and foremost, right, above your disappointment and your hurt and your resentment, then usually that will lead to better communication, calmer attitudes, right? Just a more conciliatory environment, like you mentioned. And then kids are okay. They're okay. Yes. They do a lot better. Certainly better than staying in a household where there's constant arguing or fighting or tension. I mean, that's not helpful. That's not helpful at all, because it sets up a child for just a lot of fear, never really feeling safe because they never know what's going to come next. So I'm so glad that you guys were able to turn that corner. And we're going to take a break soon, but I just, is there anything else that you could point to that you think really helped you just to get there, just to get to that realization? And I know that was a long time ago. We didn't have things back then, I don't think, like divorce coaches and stuff, but I just wonder, what did you... Okay, this might sound a little corny, but it's true. I have really a strong faith, and the idea of forgiveness of self and of him. I'm a practicing Christian, and I really truly believe in that adage that you have to kind of let the heart forgive. And I think the forgiveness always starts with the self. Because I was terribly disappointed in me. What was wrong with me? How come this? And it was kind of a mutual decision to divorce, yet he left. So there was all that added compounding insecurity and all that stuff I had to work through. And so faith and definitely good friends.
And also, I would say this to people who are going through the process to avoid friends who love the drama trauma and really focus on the negative of your soon-to-be ex-spouse, because that's not really helpful either, because then you throw all the dirty laundry out with someone, and then it's hard to retract that laundry after hopefully you're in a better space.
Right. Yes. And I know I get a lot of questions about that. So maybe we can explore that even further when we come back, and how your kids are doing and how they've, adjusted, and if you've noticed any differences. And so before we take a break too, I just want to remind everybody that we are live today. So if you'd like to call in and you have a question or you want to share a story, the phone number to call in the United States is 1-760-456-7277. And also, when we come back, Cassandra, maybe we can talk a little more about the astrology aspect, if you want to get into that,
absolutely.
Because I know that
Would
that's
love to.
your wonderful specialty, and we're so lucky to have you. So if anybody would like to call and has a question on that end, I'm sure you'd be able to help, right?
Yes. As a matter of fact, I even have my mini computer in hand. So if people wanted to give me their birthday, I could do a quick little look-see.
Oh, wow. That would be cool.
Yeah.
Maybe you could do mine. Okay.
Yeah,
Let's take a quick break, and we'll be back with more talking with Cassandra and a little bit of astrology too. Thank you. Hey there, it's Gina. If you like what you hear, did you know that you can get even deeper and closer to your heart's wisdom and receive personal one-on-one guidance by working with me virtually? If you're sick of drowning in frustration and overwhelm and ready to flow through your divorce and co-parenting challenges, then go to my website and book a call with me. That's deprima.com. DEPRIMA law.com. Or you can find me on Facebook at Deprima Law. Talk to you soon. Some of you have questions about your partnership, marriage, or co-parenting situation. I'm here for you. Give me a call in today's live episode by dialing the U.S. number 1-760-456-7277. That's 1-760-456-7277. Talk to you soon. Hey, we're back. Okay. And again, the phone number to call in is 1-760-456-7277. And we are with a very special guest today, Cassandra Joan, and she is an astrologer extraordinaire. So if you want to call in, you have your birth date, you can ask her anything you want. Let's see how the stars are aligning for you. Let's see what's going on in your relationship and talk about the planets. I don't know. So, Cassandra?
Sure. Okay.
You can explain that better.
All right. I know astrology is one of those interesting fields that everyone has an opinion, but hardly anyone, unless they study it, know what it's about. So astrology is not like fortune telling. It's actually tracking the cycles of the planets and archetypally, holistically, actually describing different moods and shifts and changes. For example, we had the past 7 years, we had this planet called Uranus, which has a very erratic orbit, and it was in the sign of Aries for the past 7 years. And so we had a lot of Uranian Aries types of events. in the past 7 years. Aries rules the head. We've had more of an interest, and because of the shootings, the horror of many of the gun violent issues and incidents over the past 7 years, looking at mental health issues. And we've also been looking at conflict in the world. So astrology is not just about the individual, it's about human cycles, is one way of putting it. And so when of course, I have a pretty interesting and very satisfying practice when I work with someone. I've 3 clients off the top of my head who are going through the divorce process, and one has her spouse out of the country, and their children are grown. She is very strong about going forward in her life, and the nuts and bolts of trying to separate legally when the spouse is literally not here. But it doesn't have that anguish piece to it because they've been living apart, you see. So I guess divorces are as different as there are people. But with the chart, it showed in this particular individual's chart that she was starting a brand new cycle in her life that represents freedom and exploration of herself that only would happen every 84 years. So I'm not saying that I said to her, excuse me, ma'am, I think you have to go through a divorce. It came up organically with our discussions in our counseling, our astrological counseling. So there are sometimes, so basically how you use the astrology, and this actually happened in my case too, by the way. People will say to me, oh, well, if you're such a darn good astrologer, how come you went through a divorce? And I would say simply this, because I'm human, he's human. And by the way, we have free will. I mean, the charts don't tell us what will happen. It gives us the climate. Yeah. So like in my case, he was having a planet going through what we call the marriage house when we went through our divorce. And it could have gone either way. He could have recommitted to the idea of the marriage, or his soul would have followed a new path, and therefore our subsequent partnership shifted and changed into co-parents. So, it's astrology is kind of complex, but at the same time, it gives us signs and symbols when people might be making radical changes in their lives. And let's face it, when we're walking down that aisle, we all have extraordinary hopes and wishes for forever. And forever doesn't always happen in a particular way. It might hopefully happen in another way if, like what you're doing, conscious uncoupling occurs.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. And you, this is another thing that I really try to stress to people, when they have children anyway, is that the divorce, it's the end of your marriage. It's not the end of your family. So you're still going to be tied to each other. Yes. And just like you mentioned, even just astrologically speaking, for one of your clients, she's entering this new phase of self-discovery, right? That's what it sounded like. And, that's nothing to be shameful of. I don't feel like, I mean, that's just where you are. And I think you can look at your partner in that, that zone or perspective of forgiveness and say, you understand and you forgive them and you're grateful for them and the role that they played and how they showed up in your life and where you are now, right? And understanding, though, that just for whatever reason, you don't have to point fingers, we're going to move forward in a different way. And it could just be planetary. If you want to just point your finger at something, right? Something you can't control.
I love what you just said, because I do practice that in so many ways. Astrology is a great psychology, right? So I will tell you, there's a little sharing here. So my son was born on my birthday. So we share the same birthday.
Oh, cool.
And leading up to his birth, the doctor was really funny. He said, I think we need to induce you on the 29th of October. And I said, well, we can't do that, doctor, because that's my birthday. And he said, well, it's a Friday though. And I'm like, the implication he was going to be busy on Saturday. And I said, dear doctor, sir, can we please just let nature take its course? There's nothing wrong with the child, right? Correct. Because I'm an astrologer and we have a full moon. And so I'm pretty sure my son's going to be coming when he's supposed to come. I drove the doctor crazy. But it ended up, when I did go into labor, the doctor said, well, yes, indeed, God took it out of our hands. I said, that's the point. The reason for me sharing this story is that even though astrologically my son and I share a birthday, we do not share a moon. Now, the moon in astrology represents our emotions and our instinctual personality. So some of us are, more cautious. Some of us are more nurturing. Some of us are more, impulsive. And so our moons kind of clash. So I adore him. We adore each other. But his moon is in fiery Aries and my moon is in little quiet Virgo. So he is also an astrology student, and I think we'll make an excellent astrologer at some point. But so we'll remind each other, hey, I'll quiet down, Mom, if you speak up a little bit more. So we navigate the psychology of that. And so when I went through my divorce, I understood my ex-husband's chart, and there's a lot of forgiveness and understanding that in his particular self, he probably was feeling kind of overwhelmed and burdened by the everyday patterning of the typical raising of kids. Fantastic dad. However, he may have had more of anxiety about that everyday litmus test of the demands of childhood with the kids. So knowing that from the astrological point of view gave me a lot more understanding and forgiveness of him. And thank you, my dear. You gave me your chart, and we're also Scorpios. How awesome is that? And,
yes.
And for anyone who's listening, I would really am super going to refer you, Gina, because your beautiful moon, your personality, is in the sign of Cancer, and Cancer rules family, and you're all about the family and all about nurturing and intuitively guiding your children. I know you have children, and just there's a sensitivity that is so apparent in your chart.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always say that when people ask me, well, why aren't you just a lawyer? Like, isn't that enough? And trust me, I have a very busy practice. So yes, in some sense, it's enough, but it's not reaching to the level of my deeper spiritual purpose, which is really to bring more healing and connections for families in this area. So that's funny. It's in my chart. Oh, cool.
Yes. And then in terms of like cycles for you, not knowing anything about your quote life or your life history, but I would say 2015 may have been a very kind of struggle or difficult year, and then rebuilding and doing some fabulous new work this year, because the planet that represents literally expansion and networking and confidence is in the sign of Scorpio right now, and has been since October. And FYI for you, Gina, your emotions in sensitive, compassionate Cancer gets another big level of finding the right people in the right way next month, because we have an eclipse. We have an eclipse cycle that's happening. So that's the type of stuff we look at, with the charts. When's the time to grow and expand? For you, it's right now.
Oh,
and
good.
Yeah. And then it's another level in July, and yet another level in the next 2 years. So you're like starting a new 30-year cycle in 2018 and 2019, which is both career and family oriented.
Yeah. Oh, nice. So, and I wonder, because I think a lot of people are just basic when it comes to astrology. I know I certainly am. And I remember growing up and thinking, well, okay, if I'm a Scorpio, then I should be matched with, a Taurus or things like that. What do you think about that? Is there truth and validity to those little simple things, or is that oversimplified?
Overly simplified, my dear. And thank you for that question, because there's astrology and then there's astrology light. So the astrology light out there is saying exactly what you suggested, that if you're a Scorpio, only get along with Cancer people and Pisces people because they're other water signs. And that really does a disservice to the complexity, because astrology identifies what is my moon sign, i.e., how am I as a parent? How am I in terms of what I want inside my home? Am I a private person, or am I a person that wants to have, the whole neighborhood kids coming over and I don't care? Am I a neat person? A lot of marriages have been torpedoed because one's like the Oscar and Felix of another generation. One person's really neat and the other person's really messy. That can create, added ongoing stress in a relationship. So, yeah, the astrology looks at the moon sign. How am I emotionally feeling? It looks at the sex sign, Mars, which is, it has to be compatible with your partner if you're going to have a married relationship and so forth. So there's a lot of complexity. I would say this, though, that even if you read some easy, and I do this on a weekly basis, I do a Facebook Live thing, and I go through the different 12 signs, and some of it is generic, but some of it also gives some guidance. Like, I would say this strongly: the Scorpios are having a year of expansion and confidence building, and that only happens every 12 years. So that's kind of generic, but if you look at the specific chart, you can get a lot more specific in what area of life. So, I agree with you. Most people just might know their sun sign, but there are all these other planetary nuances within the chart that gives us a lot of information.
Do you ever have anybody coming to you, say, before they get married and just saying, look at my partner and look at me? And has that happened?
Absolutely. Oh, yes.
I would imagine it does. Yeah.
It's funny. It happened this morning. A client of mine, I think she's been with me probably 20 years. She sat in my chair and I said, "Okay, you got a birthday for me?" And she's in the dating mode. And this is someone that, it's a social media contact. She hasn't even yet met this guy. And we looked at their combined charts, and I found, it's a solid B+ in potential. Having said that, a good astrologer, which I like to think of myself as, will never tell someone not to marry someone, but they'll show you the pluses and minuses and the potentials and the struggles and the challenges, because that's life. And you could have a fantastic relationship on paper. However, there's always that free will. Like, for example, in my case, my ex-husband and I, our moons were opposite. So we have, and that opposites attract. So we had a strong attraction, but the way of dealing with everyday reality was very different. And of course, we had other mitigating factors in our combined charts, which would have indicated some positive things, but that wasn't going to be the case with us living together.
But you were able to have a productive relationship then, nonetheless, even after divorce. And that's what it's, that's what it's about. You still have a lifetime here that you're creating and building, right? So that's what I always say. So you started off telling us how there's just this overall shift, right?
Oh, yes.
What direction? Maybe we can talk about that again. What direction are we going in? Or what does that mean for people now in the area of relationships?
Yes, that's a very good question. So in the past, I'll just give a little background about this particular planet. There are many cycles in astrology, and the further out the planet it is to the sun, the more profound and profound the quote unquote effect. And again, having said that, the planets are not like puppeteers with strings on the earth. This is all kind of archetypal and symbolic effects. So Uranus has an orbit of 84 years. So once every 84 years, it moves through the sign of Taurus. In astrology, Taurus is one of the romantic or relationship signs. It rules love. It rules sensuality. It rules anything having to do with love, money, values, possessions, and so forth. So we know that with Uranus in the sign of Taurus, that's going to put basically a spotlight on in the next 7 years. It started actually May 15th. For the next 7 years, people in general will be exploring the role of relationships in a new way, because Uranus is about newness, unexpected changes, and Uranus is also about technology. Okay, so we're already seeing this. More and more people are meeting other potential partners from how? Technology, not face to face. There are more and more people who are developing relationships with people who aren't living in their backyard. I know of several clients who have love relationships that are commuter relationships. And how is that breaking the mold? And it might be also a time to look at issues of fidelity and loyalty, because Taurus wants to be set in its ways. People might know a little bit about astrology. They know that Taurus is the quote unquote bull, right? Taurus, the bull. And so in a relationship, we normally, a marriage in particular, want to have that sense of fidelity and loyalty and fixity. So with Uranus in that sign for the next 7 years, we'll be looking at those issues. What constitutes a positive marriage? We might be thinking outside of the box. And or people, especially people around the age of 38 to 42, in that age bracket right now, may be looking at their lives and saying, I need to restate or reconfigure what a relationship means to me. I mentioned that age bracket, Gina, because remember, Uranus takes 84 years to go around the sun. So half of 84 is 42. So people in the astrological age bracket of 38 to 43 or so are having, in astrological language, their Uranus opposition. But for them, it might be the time of reckoning about what a partnership relationship means for them. And so it's a psychologist called the midlife crisis, even though, heck, we're all going to live to be 100. So midlife really is now 50. But, right?
I hope so.
Nobody at age 42 wants to be called, right? But at the astrological orbit of Uranus is half of 84 is 42. So it's often a very stressful time for the people who are now in that age. If 38 to 42, they're looking at their marriages, they're looking at their relationships and asking questions. How can it change? How can it be more fulfilling, inspiring, and give me the personal freedom to explore what I need to do while still having that committed core with another person? So that is like a mini cycle that we all go through around age 42. And if you look at it in traditional, again, psychology, that's often a stressful doorway age, just like age 30 is, age 60 is, and that's all based on the planetary cycles. I mean, we don't know that. The average person doesn't know that, but the average astrologer certainly talks about the cycles of the planets. So I hope that makes sense. So for the next 7 years, again, all of us will be looking at love. Now, here's something interesting. A headline on Us magazine when I was sitting in my chiropractor's office the other day was Megan, and I'm not sure what her official title is. Okay, the lovely lady who just married Harry. Megan is breaking the rules in the royal culture. And she, of course, the big royal wedding took place after this Uranus went into Taurus. And so astrologers got excited about the wedding date because it came with this new era of Uranus and Taurus. And it's almost as if, what a radical departure, right? You know, we have a person who's an American. We have a person who is an actress. We have a person who is African American. And this is like shaking up the cornerstone of the royal family in some ways. I mean, it's a wonderful love story, but it's different than what had been the norm. And way back when Uranus was last in Taurus, there was another big royal shakeup because heir to the crown, George, gave it all up for, I think it was Wallace Simpson. Remember, he married that divorcee and said, hey, I don't want to be king. So every 84 years, we have these radical departures regarding the rules of engagement of marriage. So you're going to have some really interesting decade ahead of you, Gina. So you could be one of the radical people who are saying, look, divorce doesn't have to be cantankerous. It could be, and conflictual. It could be more of what you're doing, what you're inspiring people to do.
And it's not going anywhere. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, people are going to continue to want to separate and have their independence. And that's what it sounds like.
Yes.
Yes. So why not do it in a way that's healthier, right? And so we're almost, I mean, we're getting down to the end of the hour here. And I wonder where our listeners could find you or connect with you. I know you're on Facebook, so if you wanted to share that information, that would be great.
Oh, absolutely. And please, I try to do a little, I call it a cosmic weather report on Facebook Live on Wednesday evenings around 9 p.m. So they can, tune into that. And I talk about, it's interactive. I like to have people communicate with me. My website has a wealth of information. It's just my name, CassandraJoanButler.com. And I'm always doing classes. Oh, here's something of interest. I'm doing a class down at Fellowships of the Spirit, and that's right outside the doorways of Lilydale down in Chautauqua County. It's a wonderful learning center, and it's going to be on Sunday the 24th. It's a day-long workshop, and I call it Moon Dance, the dance of relationship. Because this upcoming summer, we have the two relationship planets, which are Mars and Venus retrograding in the sky. So this is a unique summer. I failed to mention this to you regarding second guessing our relationships. So a kind of a wide brush statement. Even people in very healthy, wonderful relationships might be doing a little reflection, a little bit more reflection about what this person means to me. And that's from my workshops on the 24th. However, the keep in mind, friends, between the 26th of June and the 27th of August, we have Mars retrograde. That's the time frame to deal with disappointment and anger. And then in October until November, for a couple of weeks, we have Venus retrograde, and we may be rethinking our desire for love and what that might mean for us. I mean, life is a process, and we do tend to change and evolve.
Ebb and flow, right?
Exactly.
Ups and downs. We just got to go with the flow of life. Make it more simple than I think what our minds sometimes make out of it, if that that makes any sense.
Yes, indeed. No,
It doesn't have to be that way. Well, I am just so glad that you joined us here today and that you shared your story with us. I really appreciate it. And
my pleasure. Thank you, Gina.
I hope our listeners were able to gain some inspiration and know that, they can go from that place of anger and hurt and still come out maybe years later, but as friends. So until next week, please reach out to me. Thank you for joining us. I so appreciate you. Have a great week. Thank you so much for joining me today. Come back next week and be sure to visit my website at dpremalaw.com to book a call, or let's connect on Facebook at dpremalaw, where you can join my group for more support. Please remember that the information shared is for general and entertainment purposes only, and that by calling in or messaging me, we are not creating an attorney-client relationship, and my advice is not intended to be legal advice. For specific legal advice, please contact a lawyer in your jurisdiction.
This show is brought to you by InflowRadio.com, the best curated talk radio network for personal development, wellness, spirituality, and conscious business.